Fox Oldies, 105.3 WGNY FM in New York on a fun day Saturday morning. I'm Bobo, special guest with a special segment. It's Megan, an attorney for end-of-life plans right here. Megan, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, I can't believe this is the last full weekend of summer.
I know. It came so fast. Hopefully everyone's out there enjoying it.
Boy, my mom always told me the older you get, you're going to wonder where the last 10 years of your life went.
Sure. Yep. It does seem to go by quicker and quicker every day.
Yeah, it is just so true. So, Megan, what's on the agenda this morning for planning ahead?
Sure. So I thought we would talk a little bit about Medicaid planning, and this is really planning for long-term care costs. I know we've touched on it in prior segments, but it does happen to be the number one thing that clients consult with me on. Typically, we see our clients planning for their estates and for their future right around retirement age. And usually by that age, they've had some family experience with loved ones needing long-term care, whether that's care in their own home or assisted living or nursing home care. And as they go through that process with their loved ones, they begin to consider if there's anything they can do to prevent the large costs associated with it. So a big part of estate planning is not just after-death planning, but it's planning for the potential for disability. And believe it or not, in New York, there's a lot of planning strategies we can use to protect assets so that when someone does need long-term care, they're not required to deplete their whole estate for that large expense.
Boy, that's a good thing. I'm so glad about that. Megan, how about your contact information, the name of the law office that you're partners with, and
Sure.
how people can get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So I'm Megan Conroy. I'm a partner at Blustein, Shapiro, Frank, and Barone. We're located primarily out of Goshen, New York. The phone number there is 845-291-0011. We also have a website, www.mid-hudsonlaw.com. The website's great because it not only has our contact information, but it has a lot of reference material, blog posts, and you can sign up for workshops there.
You know, you really touched base on a very important issue with this Medicaid. Because there's changes coming there from what I see on the news.
Sure. Yeah. So we did see some legislation that was passed this year, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And so we saw in that legislation that there's going to be some changes to several different components of government benefits. One of those benefits that they're talking about making adjustments to is the Medicaid benefit. However, for long-term care purposes, we're not seeing major changes to how the benefit will be implemented or who it will be available to. So the changes that we're seeing to the Medicaid benefit there is really going to be for the component that offers health insurance for those people who are qualified based on income and assets. And so while it is going to affect a lot of people, it's not going to affect those people that I am typically assisting for long-term care purposes. So from my perspective, it's still a good benefit, a good resource that remains available to my clients. And Medicaid as the benefit, as you may have figured out by now, it's a federal benefit, but it's administered differently from state to state. And so it just happens to be that New York's administration of the Medicaid long-term care component is very good. And like I said, it gives us a lot of planning opportunities so that we can save a lot of assets. So government benefits, as you can imagine, it's a very complicated area of the law, and there's different benefits that are available for different people, and they offer different things. But what I typically plan for is long-term care costs specifically.
Now, of course, you have to apply for this, and not everybody's going to be able to apply, right?
That's true. So the Medicaid benefit for long-term care does have both medical eligibility requirements and financial eligibility requirements. The medical component isn't something that I am generally assisting with because it's the fact of, is the person medically needy? Do they need assistance with certain things either in their own home or are they requiring assistance in a facility? So typically when my clients come to me, they're already meeting that medical eligibility component. They have a need. They're finding that they're failing at home. They need some assistance. And now they're coming to me to figure out how do they become eligible for the Medicaid benefit so that they're not required to pay for the long-term care privately. Now, long-term care costs, as you can imagine, it's very expensive. You typically are going to see that cost anywhere between, I'd say, about $6,000 a month to upwards and in excess of $15,000 every month.
Wow.
Depending on the kind of care they need. So obviously this is a major concern for them.
Now, who would you recommend to apply for this Medicaid?
Anyone who is beginning to need some assistance, whether that's in their own home or maybe they're considering assisted living facility. So that's where they want to live someplace that maybe they can receive more round-the-clock assistance, but it's not quite skilled nursing level care yet. Or for those people who have loved ones that are needing a nursing home. Often that comes in the form of someone, maybe it's a parent who has some kind of a fall or an accident at home, or they've gone through a procedure and now they're beginning to need some rehab. Sometimes what happens is once they go in for that rehab, it's determined that it's really not safe for them to receive care anywhere else but a nursing facility. And so they continue in the skilled nursing facility, and now their family members are beginning to wonder how to preserve assets. So anyone who's needing any level of care, in New York, there's a good bet that we can still preserve assets and get the person eligible for the Medicaid benefit a lot sooner than if they just naturally or organically spend down their assets. So there is strategies that we can use to preserve assets.
Now, let me ask you this question, which just popped up in my mind here.
Sure.
And excuse me if it seems silly. When you apply to Medicaid, does it matter how many assets or how much this one individual's assets he has?
Yes, that is a great question. So the Medicaid benefit is what's considered a resource-based benefit. They're going to look at your assets and the value of those assets. In New York, they also will take into consideration your income. But your income isn't really the thing that will make you ineligible. It is the value of the assets, just as you've pointed out. So in order to be eligible for Medicaid in New York, the assets have to be at or below $32,396 of value. Now, there's only certain assets that are included when they're calculating the value of them, but that's obviously a quite low number, right? So for people who have some savings, maybe they have some investment accounts, brokerage accounts, things like that, they're probably in excess of that $32,396. But that's where the strategy comes in, is that even though you exceed that number, there are tools that we can use to bring your assets down below that number, or at least make them appear as though they're below that number, so you can qualify for Medicaid while still retaining the assets.
Now, if you have a house that's mortgage-free, is that considered an asset?
A house in New York is treated a little differently. It is obviously an asset, but for the most part, they're not going to look at the value of your home and say, oh, you're above the $32,396, you don't qualify. Instead, they're going to look at all the other assets you have. They'll acknowledge the fact that you have a home. They can then approve you if the other assets are below the $32,396, even while you still own your home. But what can still happen is Department of Social Services, which is the department that administers the Medicaid benefit for long-term care, they can put a lien against your home during your lifetime. So for every dollar of care that they pay for you, they can say, we were looking to recover this dollar at some point down the road, so we'll place a lien against the equity in your house so that we can recover it from the house after you've sold it or after you've passed away. So that's the first place that the house can be affected. The second place is even if they don't put a lien against the home during your lifetime, if the house passes through probate after you pass away, DSS or the county can come back in later and say, wait a minute, we paid a lot of money for this person while they were alive. We'd like to recover some of that from their probate estate. And so that's called Medicaid estate recovery. So they can collect from the house on the back end as well.
Wow. So if they do put a lien on the individual's home and they pass away, I guess the executor would be responsible, A, to pay off the lien, or B, sell the home, correct?
That's exactly right. I feel like you're learning, Bobo. Great. So that's the executor's responsibility, is to make sure that all the debts are paid, particularly a Medicaid debt or a lien against the house or any other asset. And so that's going to be something that the county is very good about sending in the paperwork to the court after a person passes away if they are owed money, and the executor is responsible not from their own personal assets, but from the estate assets to figure out how to pay off that lien or any kinds of debts that are owed.
Now, that can amount to an awful lot of money, couldn't it?
Absolutely. Like I said, if we're looking at nursing home care, which is sometimes greater than $15,000 every month, and that person spent several months in a nursing home, we can see hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt. And that's why through proper planning, we can actually avoid this recovery process, but it really has to be done strategically.
What about assisted living instead of a nursing home? Assisted living, is that more expensive than a nursing home?
It's actually less expensive than a nursing home. Assisted living is covered under what's called community Medicaid. So there's one Medicaid application, but depending on the kind of care that you need, you'll want to indicate to the Department of Social Services what kind of care that is, and then they'll apply different rules to it. The distinction between nursing home Medicaid and community Medicaid is a few things, all financial, but the major difference is that for community Medicaid in New York right now, there's no look-back period that is being enforced against the assets, against the applicant. So some people who are dealing with Medicaid, they may have heard of what's called the 5-year look-back. The 5-year look-back is at the time a person submits a Medicaid application asking for nursing home coverage, Department of Social Services will say, I see your application, but you also need to show me 5 years worth of financial records.
Oh, boy.
And I'm going to look through to see if in that 5 years you've given away any money or there's any unexplained transfers of assets. And if there are, we're going to assume that you did that in order to qualify for Medicaid, so we're going to penalize you for it. So gifting for Medicaid, particularly nursing home Medicaid, is problematic. But in a community setting like assisted living, there's no look-back period that's being enforced right now. And so when you submit that application, even if to become eligible you gave away all of your assets the month before, there will be no penalty period enforced against you. So it's actually easier to qualify for community Medicaid, and community Medicaid or community settings are cheaper than nursing home settings.
Wow. And, of course, you being the great attorney that you are, and you are good, Megan, you would actually help a client do all this step by step?
Absolutely. So, like I said, one of the biggest things that we assist our clients with is one thing is called proactive planning. So before the person starts to need the care, like I said, they've seen a loved one go through it, they don't want to go through it themselves, they inquire about preserving assets. And there's proactive things that we can do before they start to need an application to preserve assets. And that's the way that we can save the most amount of assets, usually using an irrevocable kind of trust. But even for those people who are needing the care immediately, maybe they had never heard of the fact that you can strategize and protect assets proactively. They come to us, my loved one's in a nursing home, I'm panicking, I don't know what to do. We can still do some what we call crisis Medicaid planning to protect and preserve assets at that time. And my office does assist with Medicaid applications.
Boy, it seems really complicated, Megan. Is it really that complicated if you have an irrevocable trust?
An irrevocable trust doesn't really reduce the complexity of the application component. The application doesn't change. But what an irrevocable trust does for us is protects assets in a better way that we could if we didn't do any proactive planning, if we waited until the last minute. The purpose of the irrevocable trust is to shelter some of the assets legally. This is entirely legal, as you can imagine. It shelters some of the assets so that when a person applies for Medicaid in the future and they need to demonstrate that their assets are below that 32,396, the Department of Social Services will ignore the assets that are inside the irrevocable trust, so they don't have to hurry around to move those ones because they're already protected.
Wow. I mean, so yeah. Now, what about when a last will and testament goes into probate? What happens with the Medicaid?
Sure. So whenever we have assets that are titled in a decedent's name, a person who passes away, in his or her name alone, they weren't in a trust, they didn't have a joint owner, they didn't have a beneficiary on them, that's when we need to probate the will. And when we submit that will for probate, that's that long proceeding. It takes usually at least a year from start to finish.
Right.
And as we go through that proceeding, there's going to be a period that creditors will have an opportunity to collect from the probate assets only. And so, like I said before, Department of Social Services or the county will submit a claim against the estate when the opportunity arises to say, I need to know what assets are going through probate because I'm owed money and I expect to be paid from those assets. So that's where we see that Medicaid estate recovery. And that happens when there's not proper planning.
And that's why it really matters that the individual that is filling out their last will and testament see an attorney like you and make sure that they pick a really good executor.
That's true. Yes, all of those things are important. The purpose of the attorney is to be able to tell the client about things that they wouldn't otherwise know about, right? So when a client calls me and says, I need a will, when I bring them in for that first meeting, I say, I understand you need a will, and we will do that, but here are some other things that could be problematic. Are you concerned about them? If you are, let's talk about how we can address them. If you're not, that's okay. We can set those aside. They're not an issue for you. So that's part of the strategy at the outset, and it's important to choose an attorney who is well-versed in this area of practice and can warn you about, or at least bring to your attention, those concerns that you may not have otherwise known about. And then the function of the executor, right, is it's a lot of responsibility and work, and you need to choose someone who's not only able to do that, but would be willing to do that.
Now, let me ask you this question in regards to an executor of your last will and estate. In the state of New York, can you pick, like, more than just one executor in case the first one you pick wants to say no?
Sure, yes. So you can set up your succession plan for your executors in a few different ways. You can have multiple executors on at the same time. So they can be co-executors working together. They both get appointed, or if there were multiple, they'd all get appointed. And they would do the executor tasks together, the administration. You can also appoint one or more executors in an order of succession, meaning if I chose John as my first executor, I might say, but if he can't do it, then Sally would be my next choice, and if she can't do it, then Jim would be my next choice, right? And so we do recommend always having an order of succession because you never know what position the executor is going to be in when they're finally called upon. They may be older themselves, or they may have passed, or they just might be in a position where they can't assist, and we always want to have a backup.
So if you have, let's say, 4 executors mentioned on your last will and testament, does the court pick the executor?
The court will defer to the order of succession that you've outlined in your will. So they're going to look at your preferences. And if John was my first choice, they will make sure that he is someone who's fit for the position, meaning he's still living, he has capacity. There's some other criteria they want to know, say, for instance, if he was a felon, there's special approval that he would need. So they're going to look at the person and analyze them, but as long as he meets all of the criteria and he's willing to serve, they're going to go with my first choice first. Now, if he's appointed and then he starts doing things that he was not supposed to be doing, then the beneficiaries might, come out and say, I think there's something fishy going on here, or they're really not communicating with us, or we think funds have been misappropriated. And then the court will say, okay, wait a minute, what's happening here? is this person doing what they should be, or are they doing something that they shouldn't, and should they be removed? And then we go to the second position.
Now, an executor gets, an extra 15% for taking care of business?
Yeah, so it's not exactly 15%. There's a calculation that gets used, and it's based on the value of the assets going through the probate estate. And it's sort of a reverse sliding scale, higher percentage for lower value of assets. That percentage then is reduced for higher value of assets. So that's the executor's commission. It's structured statutorily, meaning the state describes the formula, and then we apply it based on the assets that are involved. The executor can take their full commission, they can take something less than the full commission, or they can waive their commission completely. But what's important to know is that that executor's commission is taxable income. So if they take the commission, they do have to report that when they file their taxes, and they'll pay tax on it.
Wow. Now, what if there's co-executors? Does that mean there would be more than 15% taken out?
Sure, 2 commissions, yeah.
So that would be maybe up to 30%.
Yep, it could be. Like I said, in New York, it's not really a 15%, but it would double the percentage.
Wow. Maybe I should have become a lawyer, Megan.
Well, there are certain perks of the job, absolutely. But then there's downsides, too, just like everything.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But here I am doing the job that I do. So how about you giving out your contact information once again, please?
Sure. So the phone number for the firm is going to be 845-291-0011. The website is www.mid-hudsonlaw.com.
I tell you what, this segment of planning ahead with you every month, it's like you're the teacher and I'm the pupil. Really. And
well, you're a great student.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And of course, I'm sure it seems that way to a lot of our listeners that listen here for planning ahead. Now, you're having a workshop, right? And the last one is coming up?
That's right. So it's actually scheduled for October 14th. However, that workshop is full. We even have a wait list. Certainly people can still sign up for the wait list because we do tend to get some cancellations right before. But because that one is so full, I've already scheduled the first 2 workshops for next year. I scheduled one for January 27th, which is going to be a webinar-based workshop. It'll be live, but it's going to be over the computer, partly because not everyone can come in to the office. Another component is that we're filling up really fast, which is great, but I still want to give a lot of people an opportunity to hear about this. And then, in January, you could get some bad weather. So I figured a webinar for January 27th, and then I have an in-person workshop scheduled for March 11th.
Oh, wow. I'm very, very pleased to hear that your last workshop of this year is totally jammed up. I mean, I think that is just absolutely great. And why wouldn't it be for a law firm like yours, a law firm that you are partners in, would be like this? I'm not surprised at all, to be quite honest with you, because you really give out so much great information and advice for free on the radio right here on Fox Oldies 98.9. I think that just is absolutely wonderful. And by the way, the last segment we had about Uncle Joe, the perils of Uncle Joe, that got a pretty good response.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, just right here in the station itself, absolutely. And
yeah, well, it's very relatable. Uncle Joe's scenario, right, feels very much like a real-life case study. It is very, very closely tied to things that we see every day in our practice. So, yeah, those are very real concerns and things that do happen.
Absolutely. I haven't heard any more yet, but I'll keep my ears open for something like that. But can you believe, I can't, can you believe this is the last weekend of summer?
I can't. It really went by so quickly. I think part of it was the rainy weather at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And then we just got summer in a flash, and now we're going into fall. But I'm okay with some cooler weather. I like the cool weather.
You ready for the wind, the snow, the rain, the wet, the shoveling?
Well, not all of that, when you put it that way.
I like the winter, and I'm going to tell you why. Because nobody's around. It's the winter is very solemn. It really it really truly is. That's when you get to turn up the thermostat a little bit, get a nice cuddly blanket, watch some TV, see some Christmas movies, whatever the case you're going to be, or put on that ugly sweater.
That's right. Yes, I love the cozy weather, and it's a really nice time for reflection, for planning out the year ahead. So I agree with you.
Absolutely. Megan, again, it's very, very important that we have your contact information. So if you wouldn't mind giving that out one more time.
Absolutely. The phone number at Blustein, Shapiro, Frank, and Barone is 845-291-0011. The website is www.mid-hudsonlaw.com.
And it was a very interesting conversation about Medicaid. I didn't know a lot of that stuff. I really,
and a lot of people don't.
But you will take care of all of that with a client, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a staff person who's dedicated to our Medicaid applications. She has a wonderful relationship with the local departments of social services. It is 100% something that we do.
Wow. I think that is just absolutely awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, really, contact Megan here, and she'll take very, very good care of you. Make an appointment, and don't mess around with your last will and testament. And again, we reiterate by letting you know it's very, very important as who you want as executor.
That's right.
It really, truly is. And I know that for a fact. Believe me, of things that I have gone through personally. It's just really, really amazing. But make sure you get the right person as an executor to take care of business and pay off that credit card debt and all other bills. Right, Megan?
Absolutely. Who you're choosing for each of your different documents is just as important as the distribution language, the, providing for your pets, providing for your kids. You have to make sure you're getting the right people to carry out your wishes.
Oh, yeah. I have a very good friend of mine that just loves his dogs. He just loves his dogs. And, of course, they're getting up there in age. And he had said to me that when these two dogs finally pass away, he's not going to adopt or rescue another one. And I asked him why. And he said, because I don't want to leave them behind.
Sure. It's absolutely a consideration. I think that's a very responsible pet owner.
Really? Because I'll tell you what, I have to have a puppy. I just love dogs that much. I really do. And I always have to have that comfort by my side.
I agree. There's nothing like the love that a pet can give you, especially I'm partial to dogs, nothing against any other animal, but absolutely, I have a dog of my own. We're big pet planners in the office.
And, every night, one of my labs comes up on the bed and lays right against me every night. And
that's cute.
It is, and it's such a sign of them being in love with you.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. That unconditional love, right? They're happy to see you all the time. Not every person can say that for the humans in their household. So,
well, you got that right. Megan, thank you so much for being with us on this last day, not last day, but the last weekend of summer. Bye-bye, summer. Oh, yeah. Pretty soon.
Well, it's a pleasure, Bobo.
Yeah, pretty soon we're going to be trading in our lawnmowers for leaf blowers.
That's true. Yep. And then snow blowers. So.
Oh, please. Megan, again, thank you so much for your valuable time, and I know our listeners really do appreciate you.
Thank you, Bobo.
Okay, you have a good day now.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, there she goes. And let me tell you, she is absolutely wonderful and awesome. I'm going to be right back with more of the greatest music ever recorded right here on Fox Oldies 98.9, 105.3, WGNY FM.